Hello and welcome to this exclusive virtual session on talent strategies that can help you accelerate innovation and growth at your organization as part of our SME Corner initiative powered by KEKA. I'm your host, Pallavi. From creating growth opportunities to building a collaborative and inclusive environment at the workplace, there are multiple factors that can help you boost workplace performance. What are these strategies that may work well for your business? How does one measure and reward performance at the workplace? What are some of the key trends and priorities in the review season? We'll discuss this and much more. In today's session, our experts will reflect on the key priority areas for talent leaders during performance review. Let me start by introducing my speakers for the session. We have with us Ganapati Subramanian, CHRO Sundaram Home Finance, a seasoned HR professional with experience in the areas of talent acquisition, talent engagement and management, talent development, and HR analytics. Ganapati has introduced innovative HR strategies in recruitment, training, and employee engagement. Also a motivational speaker, he delivers lectures at various forums, including various B schools. His keen interest in behavioral sciences indulges in writing poems, short stories, and reading management books during his free time. Also joining us for this panel is Varun Ramakrishnan, Group Product Manager, Kika. Varun enjoys collaborating with people, solving challenges by building user-friendly products and services, and scaling high-performance and happy teams. Comes with over 12 years of experience in leading product and program management, engineering and solution consulting, operations and pre-sales across e-commerce, digital marketing, CRM, and enterprise apps, with data, design, analytics, and customer obsession at its core. Very warm welcome, and thank you both of you for being part of this panel. Happy to host you, Ganpati and Varun.
Thank you, Pallavi.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
And well, for those of you who've just logged into this webcast, a very warm welcome to you. Request you to use the chat option while you are showering your comments or any questions that you may have for our experts. We'll be taking the audience questions after the discussion. So with this, let's get started. And before I take your perspective on the key priorities for businesses, Ganpati and Varun, both of you, let's quickly gauge the mood of the audiences. Let's have a quick poll. All the audience need to do is we'll be giving them a question with five options, and they need to choose one of the options which they feel is the most relevant. So I'll read out the first poll for you, and we can have that on the screen. So the question is, what are the key factors they consider while setting priorities for their organization during the performance review? Can we have the poll on the screen? So we've given them five options. Is it company objectives as the main driving factor, or is it market conditions, financial growth, employee engagement, or loyalty and retention? Let's see how it rolls and what kind of votes do people give to these options. Meanwhile, I will take a quick comment from Varun before we see. We'll wait for some seconds to see how the answers roll up. As of now, we could see people voting for employee engagement.
I'm
Any
very curious.
comments?
Yeah, I was very curious. I was just waiting to see the first few responses. I think employee engagement definitely comes at the top, right? Just that it's slightly disconnected to the question, maybe because we are talking about performance review, and performance review is generally from an individual standpoint, right? A company performance review and an individual performance review, and obviously how engaged you are keeping every employee is very important. I was pretty much biased towards that from my own opinion standpoint. Looks like that's how it's shaping up, but let's see. I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out at the end of the poll.
So we can see some votes given to company objectives as well. Some portion inclined towards market conditions, which may be a major factor for some of the companies. And we could see, nobody has so far voted for financial growth,
Financial.
but majorly it's employee engagement. Any comments from you, Ganpati?
Yeah, say I actually see these five questions into three questions actually. Company objective, financial growth as a single entity because the companies exist to make financial wellness and growth. So that would be the major objective. Of course, market condition might be something which you can't actually controllable, which is not very unique to you. Probably a COVID kind of situation, if you take, uh, that affects all of them operating in that zone. So maybe a policy came from government, probably that will affect the entire banking sector. So I'll keep the marketing conditions separately. The third part is the loyalty and retention and employee engagement. Of course, if you want to retain employee, you need to really look at for engagement. So that's why people voted little higher on employee engagement. And so if you take care of your employee, I think they will take care of your business. Of course, market condition is something you can't influence. So that's what I felt will see in this question.
Great. We'll keep this poll for some time, but meanwhile, I want to quickly come to you, Varun, and ask you about what do you think are the top priorities from a business performance perspective as the performance review session is underway, and how can actually HR leaders stay focused on rewarding performance? Like, what is your take?
Hmm. Got it. Got it. So I think one thing that we have to be very mindful in any organization is to ensure we understand the audience, understand the employee base, right? It's very important for us to figure out who are these people, right? What categories are in, right? And what is the industry that the company is actually serving, right? And how can they come up with strategies, and what is high performance, right? The definition of a high performance culture is very important. It's very relative to every organization, right? The moment you hear the word high performance, you might think, hey, am I supposed to stretch? Am I supposed to work on weekends? No, that's not what it is, right? So it's very important to give that clarity top down on what is high performance to every employee, right? And I do strongly believe that this is not a seasonal thing, right? Just because it's the season of performance reviews, just because it's April, or just because it's the beginning of the year or end of the year, I think it's not important that we talk about high performance only at that period, right? It's very important that this is an ongoing conversation. And as I said, the leadership sets the tone for what is high performance, right? And what are the business goals, and how are every employee is going to contribute to the business goals. I think that's key, right? Once this tone is set and we constantly keep iterating it and talking about it, I think that's what sets the agenda for the quarterly, half yearly, annual performance reviews, right? Whereas if you do not talk about it throughout the year, every day, every minute, right, and we come only at that season, and when that quintessential performance review is supposed to happen, I think it's going to like spring up surprises to everyone in the organization, right? So it's very important primarily for us to ensure every organization talks about business goals, talks about what is their definition of high performance, and constantly translates that to every employee, right? That alignment is what I would like to highlight and focus on, right?
Sure, sure. In fact,
In fact,
Ganpati, a quick comment
yeah,
from you as well.
yeah,
And very rightly, Varun said, that it not necessary that, we talk about it only annually, but it could be like an ongoing conversation. And we see some of the organizations implementing quarterly conversations at their organization level. How do you look at that? And probably how would you shortlist like top three priorities on this
yeah,
one?
yeah. In fact, I completely align with Varun. See, the alignment of no clear organizational goal into the n minus level employee goal is what going to help the organization to achieve its goal. So communication is the key. You need to go and then talk to people about why we have got this stretch target, why we need to create the high performing organization, and how that literally helps you to achieve your career goal. So that's the key. So employees should know why we do what we do. So that's the important thing. The other critical thing is the transparent evaluation process. Many of the time what happens when you don't articulate and clearly communicate, put the top performer in your social platform, internal platform, it becomes like suddenly somebody being called as a high performer, then it creates people feel it's a bias, and it creates little bit of unfair treatment, and that creates a furnace environment, the heat inside the organization. So probably what we need to do, we need to continuously tell people who are all the high achiever internally, and then you need to recognize them on a month on month basis. Of course, this quarterly and half yearly appraisal is a formal methodology what HR is forcing, but I would, as a manager, as a leader, I would know, tell people that they need to have the calls every day, every month, every week, so that there is a constant push to people that they need to achieve what they should achieve, and how it is aligned with the overall organizational objective and goal. Of course, we also need to link that reward and recognition fairly well with your performance management system. That will help you for a long-term results.
I saw an interesting shift on the poll. I think it started from employee engagement, and I think we just closed it. It ended with company objectives. That's actually great to see. I think a lot of folks now giving that emphasis to company objectives, because earlier it used to be all your own performance, right? What was your skill? What did you do, right? But I think that alignment, that entire shift of saying, hey, it's important that what you do is contributing to where the company needs to go, right? And that way, everyone is becoming very mindful of every task, every initiative, every project, every small thing that they build within a company that takes the overall business performance forward, right? So it's actually nice to see that many have voted towards company objectives.
In fact,
Right.
the KPIs are now shifting to a OKR is
Okay.
the proof of putting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's where communication will play a major role. If everything is communicated very well, and even everybody is aligned, every individual in the company is aligned towards company objectives. Building on to what we just discussed, Ganapati, I have a question for you. Talking about a high performance work culture, or performance at the workplace, how would you measure performance? Like, what would be the critical features of a high performance workplace culture according to you?
Yeah. See, I have two perspectives to it. No, one is the business side of it. The other one is the metrics what you use to validate the performance. Any business, as I said, you start the business for delivering the profitability. There is a purpose for each business, so you need to identify those purpose. The purpose can be solving some problem or providing a product or a service. So if you need to actually understand that, and then try to kind of connect that the holistic perspective, you actually move from a very customer centric and a employee centric approach. So the moment you move as a employee centric approach, you create more EVPs, value proposition which the employee is looking for, and then that actually help you to have a high performing over culture. So I can jog back to my PepsiCo example. When the entire people were talking about IJPs, Pepsi talks about AJP. AJP is an alumnus job portal. So it solved two purpose. One, helping the employee who moved from Pepsi to outside world, allowed them to know their job requirement inside Pepsi, so they can be an applicant. And the other thing is they can also refer people. So when they can refer people, they get some reward. When they refer, they know that those people are somebody who can actually deliver what Pepsi would be looking for. So it actually helped. So I would say that both employee centric and the what you call the customer centric approach is what you need to look at. You also need to do something like a tech and digital integration. So in many the organization, the technology what they use in business, the HR, the finance, it all not integrated. It doesn't speak to each other. So probably if you can integrate those technology, and then you can make people to do an informed choice, take decisions faster. That will actually create a very high performing organization. So when it comes to the metrics, you can either use a KPI based, maybe a MBO model, or you can use a balance scorecard. You can use any one of them. Again, you can use which one is more convenient to you, more needing to that organization. So you can use those kind of a metrics, maybe a KPI driven, maybe a OKR model, maybe a even a balance scorecard approach you can use.
Any comments from you, Varun? Probably on the shift that from the traditional method to the newer ways like OKRs. Any comment there?
Yeah, I think it was always there. Goal setting frameworks were always there, right? It was just in different formats, right? And OKRs have simplified a lot of things. And OKRs stress on how it is important, right, from the CEO till the intern who has just joined yesterday, why it's very important for that alignment, right? That's what OKRs have shifted. Earlier, as Ganapati said, there have been frameworks like MBO, balanced scorecard, right? A lot of different frameworks that people have been using, but mostly in the leadership side of things, right? So that shift to OKRs brings a lot more transparency, right? At the end of the day, it's nothing but making the goals and key results and metrics very visible to the entire organization, right? So everyone is able to ask open questions about it and contribute to it, right? I start seeing questions from the audience as well. Do we take it now? How do we go about it?
So we'll be taking up the questions probably
Yeah.
after the discussion is over.
Yep.
Right now, it's time for our next poll. And
Yep.
since we're talking about the shift and the changes at the workplace, let's learn from our audiences as to what they find as the most effective strategy in managing expectations. So can we have the second poll on the screen? We've again given like 5 options to our audiences. Question is, what is the most effective strategy in helping organizations manage expectations? Well, between experience and technology. So the first option is seamless integration between human touch and tech solutions, or maybe a robust communication channel to set and manage realistic expectations. Or C, comprehensive training programs to ensure employees and customers understand the changes that are happening from a tech perspective. D, feedback and insights to adapt technology and experiences accordingly, or personalized experiences which are tailored to their individual needs while leveraging technology. So let's see how these options roll out. As so far, we can see people voting for communication channels as well as training programs. Any comments from you, Ganpati? We have some vote on the feedback bit as well, which we were just discussing a while ago.
All right.
Varun, how do you read these responses?
I'm just seeing communication kind of spike up. It was a close call between training programs and communication. I think that's in line with what we just spoke about, right? The whole
Or
communication.
maybe the expert view is sort of reflecting in what people, it's kind of influencing them to vote,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, but I think that's what people expect, right? On the ground, I think it's very important to keep that conversations going on, keep it very transparent, and that's very important. I mean, to me, I would say it would be ironic, but I would say tech is secondary here, right? When we want to get started with managing expectations, right? I think it's very important that we manage expectation with or without tech, right? And just opening up a strategy doc to the entire organization, or making sure that you are able to have that transparent culture. Your organization does not need tech, actually. At the end of the day, it just needs one email or a basic document that gets shared to everyone, right? And everyone has constant access to it, right? So I think it's reflecting well that way. I think communication does seem to be the top priority when it comes to performance evaluations. And
Right. Almost, I think almost like a 50% vote is towards robust communication channels. Ganpati, if I were to ask you, are there any other factors in your opinion that actually help organizations manage the expectations during the performance review time? What is your take?
I think we started with communication, and communication is the key for performance management. As Varun was alluding, that with or without technology, we have been managing performance. It's not that performance management is a new animal what we are trying to manage. Performance, the technology actually provides a platform and then help us to manage the performance management process much easier. Actually, earlier you have so much of papers you need to go through. It needs a lot of investment of time, and you don't know what kind of data you have. Today everything is available in your fingertips, so the data driven is what you are getting today. So I think communication is the key, and then train people in terms of high order performance is also critical. I also want to give a live example. Maybe you have a technology, you want to actually automate everything. Maybe a loan process, what we normally lend, as a HFC company. So you apply the loan is getting processed. They ask for you to upload some documents, you upload it, your loan is getting sanctioned, you are getting the money on your account for maybe for a personal loan. But you have 2 crore of rupee you want to invest, and I give you a best of the technology platform to you. Would you go by the technology platform, or you want a human touch approach? So probably the human touch is the key for us. So probably, I don't know why people not know looking at the integration between the human touch and the tech solution. Probably that's also something I would love to know stress on,
Sure,
right?
sure. Well, if I were to ask you about some of the key challenges or, which are there top of the mind for employees during this time, and probably what are the ways to manage them, what would your answer be? Ganapati, this one is for you.
Yeah, see, of course, when you talk about experience and technology, the leadership and the top management stress onto the culture is very very critical. You need to talk the same thing again and again and again until everybody understand that, and then everybody's DNA speaks that. So until otherwise, you won't achieve what you really want to achieve. So I think the top management clarity and the leadership talking about the key points are critical for according to me. Yeah.
One point I would like to add there, Pallavi, right? So what I have realized based on my experiences, I think we really have to get into the employees' shoes here, right? When we think about challenges that they face, at the end of the day, the person or the team or the organization, call it the HR department or the leadership that's actually framing this process, this entire performance process, everyone is also an individual employee there, right? And they also have their own concerns on, hey, how is this going to happen, right? What are the competencies? What are the KRAs? How am I going to be evaluated, right? Is it going to be the same process as last time, or is it going to be a new process, right? Right to simple things like, is it quarterly, half yearly, annually? How do I keep a record of all my feedback, right? If there is no tech, right? If there is a platform, then it helps you collate all the feedback and everything, right? So everyone is like hundreds of doubts, right? So the best thing that we can do at this point is put ourselves in the shoes of an employee. In fact, there's no harm in actually asking for feedback, right? After a performance review process, it's very important to ask for feedback on how that performance review process went from every employee, right? And you'll see very interesting insights coming out of that, right? Basic things that we would have missed tracking, or we would have missed overseeing when actually conducting that entire performance evaluation framework, right? So I think it's very important to get feedback and understand the pulse of the employees, and make sure every other cycle, whether it's quarterly, half yearly, or annual, you keep improving that, because it's evolving, right? You might want to try a new method, right? Like some companies abolished the complete rating system once. At the end of the day, they just abolished the rating system, but it was just existing in some other format, right? It was not as numbers, but it was just something else, right? So it's very important to understand that. And the other piece here I see from an employee standpoint is expectation, right? This word called expectation, right? It's very important to set that expectation, because we talk about, hey, did you meet expectation? Did you exceed expectation? Were you not meeting expectations, right? And expectation is very relative, right? I have my own expectations on myself. My manager has a different expectation. The super boss has a different expectation, right? And the company has a different expectation. So it's very important to set the expectation earlier, rather than coming to the fag end of it and then saying, oh, okay, I thought you would do this, but this was not happening, right? So it's very important to like demystify that expectation and be very clear. Then what happens is there's no surprise, right? There are no challenges, and it's more of a smoother process, right?
Yeah, Varun, that's why
Do you feel?
yeah. Sorry, Pallavi. That's why
Yeah,
Arun,
yeah, please.
Varun, we have this monthly and quarterly
Right.
what do you call sessions with employee, and then
Yep.
we help them to understand where they are
Yep.
today. If there is an appraisal, like the in the election campaign, they do that. After 2 year, if you do conduct an election today, who will come to power? So
Correct.
you
Correct.
you can kind of get the mood survey. We do that
Exactly.
kind of surveys internally. Not
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
that, we also kind of realign. Sometimes you people move from one function to another function. They vertically or horizontally move to a different business. So how you help them to understand that business nitty-gritties and then importance. That also makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I just want to add those 2 points.
Yeah, definitely. Regular check-ins are the way to go. Definitely.
Yeah.
That will kind of alleviate all challenges that employees have. Right?
Correct. And we also do the surveys post appraisal. So satisfaction survey post appraisal, not on the rating but on the feedbacking
Process.
mechanism.
On the process.
Process and feedbacking mechanism, because everybody wanted to be rated as the outstanding or exceeded expectation, and you can't handle that. You have a budget and you need to allocate that budget for the performance management system. But no, we actually look at the feedback, how the feedback given, is there an attention to detail? Is the manager using some kind of a star
Yep.
ER model? Is the feedback being taken in the right spirit? All those things, we take surveys from the manager, whether the employee is actually coming with the relevant data for the discussion, as well as from the employee about the manager, whether they are making sense to the employee.
Yep.
And no, we take a lot of corrective action every year.
Yeah. I think it's very important to take the feedback and implement them, right? I think it'll be great if all organizations start doing that on a regular basis. Yeah.
True.
Well, my actual next question was actually on implementing that feedback. But nevertheless, I do have some more questions for you, Varun. So if I were to ask you, what are the high tech and high touch points from an employee experience perspective as we step into the review process? Would you like to, elaborate on that one?
Yeah, I think from a tech standpoint, definitely, I think a lot of stuff can be done. I think there is this AI buzz coming these days, and I think there have been traditionally products, right, and not even the recent Chat GPT stuff, but IBM used to have this huge AI machine called Watson, right, and it used to literally help employees on career coaching, right, and it gives employees personalized advice on their career, right? Helping them align with what they want to do in their career with what the company wants to do as part of their goals, right? I think there have been tools always existing from a high tech standpoint, mainly for personalized feedback, right? And a lot of analytics in your system. Any HR tech platform should be having a lot of analytics on what kind of feedback did this person receive kudos. Was this person on a performance improvement plan, right? How can it collate all of that and give insights to the employee to start identifying areas of improvements, right? That's very important. And what is important here is to have that human touch and that high touch from the managers or the mentors or the coaches identified within the organization to kind of constantly do a check-in with them if the tech tools are actually helping them, and if it is realistic or if it is like superficial, right? It's very important. So personalized feedback, I think, is very important from a high tech standpoint. Tech can really kind of enhance how you give feedback to people, right? The other is, of course, what do you do with the feedback, right? How do you learn? How can you have continuous learning opportunities, right? How can you upskill yourself, right? A lot of learning management systems, learning experience platforms have cropped up, right? The sure gap here is when high motivated people who are self starters, they are able to run without a coach or without a mentor or a trainer, and they can do their learnings themselves. But in cases where you want to make sure that the learning is happening meticulously, right, you also want to pair technology with actual trainers, actual mentors who are able to upskill people, right, on a particular skill. It could be a technical skill and competency or a soft skill and competency, right? So I would say personalized feedback and upskilling and learning is very, very important. The one other point which I already mentioned in my first statement, right, is about how transparent your goal setting system is, right? So tech can really enable it. Although I say tech is not needed for you to start your goal setting journey, but with tech, I think you can enhance your goal setting journey, make it transparent, visualize that complete alignment from the leadership to every level of employee on how every goal is aligned to your company performance, right? So that level of transparency and collaboration only tech can bring it, right? Along with, you have to be again disciplined here to say, when you say high tech, yes, you have a tool that brilliantly visualizes the OKRs of the company, but then you also need to ensure there is a champion who comes in week on week and checks in on these OKRs, and who checks with every team, who runs the monthly business reviews, quarterly business reviews. It's very important to have that high tech champion also available, right? So yeah, overall, I think feedback, learning, and transparent goals, right? That's what I think high tech can leverage.
Sure. Fact technology is definitely the enabler. But Ganpati, if I were to, point the question to you. How is technology primed to accelerate the mandate to build high performance workplace culture, and how can actually organizations improve employee experience with the help of technology?
Yeah. So technology provides, a lot of data points. I think the data will help the manager to take the right choices, right kind of decision making. Technology can actually not only understand the current business need, but also future employee aspiration and goal. Maybe when you create a performance management system, you need not talk about only the company goals and then talk about why we should achieve. If you also create a parallels and then tell people what they should achieve for their career, so there no the manager need to act a real coach and help them to understand their aspiration, create a career development action plan, and then make it little not a 1 year or a 6 months, but at a 18 months to a 36 months timeline. Actually, now the employee will not only work for the company, but work for his own self, and then achieve the company's overall objective. Tell me that see, one of my employee who's currently doing a recruiter role, I tell the person that no, you are going to head the recruiter role or the head the recruitment function in the next 3 years, and these are all 3 or 4 area I want you to work. I think that's where the individual employee will focus and then accelerate their own learning, instead of telling them you need to learn, or just nominating somebody for your training program will not help. So you need to connect the business aspiration with the individual aspiration. I think that's where technology will play its devil's due. I feel like that. Yeah. And the other point, see, sometimes the technology, I'll also talk about little the other side of technology. When we say technology, we are bringing a new stuff. There is a change management, there is a fear in the minds of people. So probably our job is to ensure that uh, clearly that the technology we are bringing to enable their own job. So whether it can help the person in terms of process management, in terms of reducing the turnaround time or the profitability metrics, the moment you talk and then help them to understand why we bring this technology, I think that's where people will adapt and then start using the technology, and then certainly the technology will accelerate the growth. Yeah.
Sure. Any comments, Varun?
No, I think spot on. Right? It's very important to take out that fear whenever you bring any new system. Right? If it's just a system to manage your performance, that's different. But the kind of high tech tools that even I mentioned earlier, right? It's always important to balance it out with why do you need that tool, right? What am I going to help you with it, right? And giving that reassurance to employees that hey, that's not going to replace anything, right? And that's only going to like boost your productivity and boost your capabilities, right? So that's very important. I completely agree to that. With the advent of all these AI tools, I think it's very important to keep doing that reality check with all employees, right? And yeah, I think, and one other thing is they're going to start adopting these technologies, right? Irrespective, right? And to enhance employee experience and engagement. And employee engagement has also transformed, right? We are talking about Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, right? I think the whole workforce is kind of shifting towards Gen Z. We say 30% in 2024 and in 25 will be Gen Z, right? And that's going to keep changing, right? So as you bring in new talent strategies, I think the need, right, the motivation or incentive for your workforce is also changing, right? It's changing to becoming a more community driven stuff. It's I mean, I was just prepping for this and I was reading some stats, right? I think 70% Gen Z folks leave a company when they don't have a flexible leave policy, right? And these are real facts, right? And as simple as those policies that you want to frame and keep your employees motivated, right? And tell them why you are actually having a policy or actually having a tech or a process, right? So the way we communicate to this workforce is also changing, and we have to be mindful of that, right? And once we do that, I think employee engagement becomes truly you know the employee, right? You just don't do it for the sake of doing an employee engagement activity or program, but you actually understand and identify with that workforce segment.
Sure, sure.
In
Well, as
fact,
we are,
Pallavi,
yeah, Ganpati, you have something.
I will also add on to it. Maybe when you add on to the new technology, probably you can use simulations. You can come up with AR VR based learning, help them to understand the technology a little more easier and better. Probably instead of telling there is a technology, use the technology to help them to learn the technology. That will help them actually. So that's something I feel we should do, and then probably gamify the entire thing. So identify those who are doing it right, recognize those employees, make that success story go across through your intranet. Actually that will also motivate people to kind of adapt technology much faster, and then that will further accelerate a high performing work culture.
Definitely.
Great. Well, we are halfway through the conversation. I think it's time that we involve our audiences once again and understand from them or find out what are the challenges that they may be facing while they want to accelerate the innovation and impact to boost growth at the workplace. So, can we have the next poll on the screen? Again, the process is the same. All you need to do is go to menti.com and put the code which is given on the screens. The question says, what are the key challenges your business faces while accelerating innovation and impact to boost growth? You have 5 options to choose from: limited budget and resources, or is it lack of risk taking within the organization, misalignment between innovation strategies and the business goals, insufficient access to good talent, or a resistance to change and inertia, which is more of an internal issue. We can see budget as one of the factors, plus resistance to change getting a higher vote here, and some votes given to insufficient access to good talent. So lack of risk taking so far doesn't have any votes, but you can see some votes going towards misalignment between strategies and business goals. How are you reading these comments, Varun?
Oh, I was focused on lack of risk taking because I somewhere strongly have an opinion. I don't know, it could be biased, but it's very important that you look at what you have first and try to see how you can accelerate, right? Rather than looking outside, right? So, although lack of risk taking is aligned to insufficient access to good talent, maybe you don't have the talent that can take risk, right? It's actually aligned, but it's very important to kind of look within and ensure that you're able to cultivate that DNA in your business or organization to take risks and see, solving the simple problems is not going to take you anywhere, right? Any business, you can accelerate in innovation or you can transform the company only when you solve the tough problems, right? And when you have to solve the tough problems, you have to take some risks, right? So I think budget and resources is definitely last in my list. I would at least say risk taking and talent is very, very important. Resistance to change, definitely. I think change is always going to face resistance, but I think it's very important to identify why you need the change. What is this change going to bring to you, right, in future? Not changing just for the sake of experimenting something, right? It's very important that every business does not look at another competitor or another player in the market and say, I'll just do what they did, right? That will not work. So it's important to just not change something because it worked for someone else, rather than try and see how it will fit for your own goals, right? So yeah, I think I have a slight difference of opinion from the poll results here, but yeah, I'll focus on the center three things, right? Lack of risk taking and insufficient access to good talent and change and inertia. Yeah, but I think
Sure.
the other two are coming up closer: good talent and
Right.
yeah.
So, Ganpati, if you had to vote, which one would you have voted for?
Of course, my vote will also go to lack of risk taking within the organization, because many the time, organization don't want to rock the boat when it is going fine. No, why should I rock the boat? And then that's where the first level of resistance comes. Resistance to change among the employee as well as at the organization level is another thing, according to me. Of course, budget. If you have a clear thought process on your strategy, and then you know what you are going to get by that investment, I think today you get a lot of angel investors. You got business partners, you can do crowdfunding, you can go for an IPO, you get the budget. I don't think budget should be a constraint for the right goal for any organization. But definitely, I think the lack of risk taking and the resistance to change would be the major thing according to me. Maybe even talent. We are now a global village. You can buy talent. If you are very keen of that particular thing, you can actually buy talent. I don't think buying a talent should be a problem. In fact, there are big companies, either Microsoft or you call any big companies, why they are buying smaller companies, and then a lot of tech startups are bought by these big companies, big giants. So they have insufficient talent, and that's why they are buying those companies, and then they are willing to invest. I strongly believe lack of risk taking and resistance to change are the two things companies need to address.
Sure.
And in fact, for coming out of the resistance, they can actually use the internal influences. So if they can go around and then talk, why they brought this change, I think the organization should identify those internal influencers, and then help them to understand the purpose behind it. I think they will be your voice, and then they will actually solve the resistance even to an extent.
Well, if our audiences feel they might have some questions for our panelists, they can drop in the questions in the chat box, and we'll take them up, as we move towards the Q&A. But before that, I have one more question for you, Ganapati. For from an organizational perspective, like, do you see opportunity areas that businesses need to be mindful of while they're designing initiatives to boost innovation growth? Like, what would be those?
Yeah, of course, they need to be mindful. If you don't do it without mindful, you will not get what you want to achieve. See, I always feel, it's like muscle power what you build in a gym. So if you want to do something, you need to really work on that. You be very disciplined, and you need to focus on that. If you don't focus, I don't think you will achieve the end result. In fact, I will take my own company example. When we thought of doing some kind of an innovation lab, come up with new practices in terms of technology. We called it as an innovation lab, and we asked people to come up with ideas, collaborate, and then talk, help them, those idea owners, to go and sell those ideas internally, get more people to buy those idea. I think that worked very well, and we used innovative design thinking methodologies while doing those things. We conducted workshop, and then we made more people to understand why they should be part of it. I think that kind of an approach certainly will help.
Great. I think on that note, can we start taking up the audience questions? We already have a couple of questions we can see on the screen. So I think, Varun, you would like to take this one up. It's a question by Tahir. It says, how can a pay-for-performance system benefit both the employers and employees? How would you answer this one?
Yeah, I think I will kind of slightly give a different answer to this. When we say pay for performance, again, we have to be mindful, right? When we talk about business goals, right, and when we kind of attribute a percentage of an employee's pay, right, to the business goals, I think we have to be very clear in setting those rules, right? In certain areas, it becomes straightforward. For example, if it's a sales department, right, it becomes very straightforward on how you do pay for performance, right? Because your performance is directly linked to how many deals you close, right? And that's how your payment strategies are also, right? But in other areas, right, say your R&D departments, your tech, your product, and other areas, it's not going to be very easy, right? So it's very important to maintain that balance. I definitely let Ganapati add to it, because he'll be an expert and he might have devised more strategies around that. But from my side, coming from an OKR world, I would definitely see that it's important to balance pay for performance between business goals and individual performance, right? So business performance and individual performance, be it 50-50 or 70-30, or how do you want to split that out, right? Within the framework of what works in your organization, it's very important. And every level of employee also may not warrant a pay for performance, right? You might not want to do that, right? You might want to ensure that the leadership takes the most chunk of it, and then the next level managers, right? The L1, L2 managers, and then it's a different model, right? So it's very important that we can't say a one size fits all for every employee in the organization or every department. So we have to balance that, right? Giving more weightage to individual performance in early stage employee careers is important. Giving more weightage to the business performance in senior leadership roles is very important, right? Because their work directly contributes. Their team's work directly impacts the business goals, the revenue, the retention, and any other metric that the company is tracking, right? So it's highly beneficial because it motivating people towards the objectives, company objectives. It just not is on paper, right? Saying, hey, this is the company objective that you are aligned to. It actually gives lot more accountability, right, to the employee, saying that, hey, you are actually impacting that. And if you're impacting that well, and we are going to compensate you well enough, right? So I think it's very beneficial for employees and employers. It's just that how we want to allocate it based on different employee segments and levels.
In fact, I would say pay for effort rather than of result alone. Say, for example, I have a legal person. We lend loan, so there would be some kind of an NPA. So there is a recovery process that happens. So a legal guy, I can't put a turnaround time of 4 days or 7 days, because his work completely depends on the court order and so on and so forth. Whereas a salesperson, that he can sell the product, and then maybe a number of files or number of the value what he brought to the table, I can actually make a pay for performance. So there are departments or there are functions where you need to look at the results. There are departments where we need to see the effort. So the right combination of effort and results is what make your performance management absolutely employee friendly, and then they love it.
Well, talking about efforts, there's a question by Malika which I found quite interesting. The question is how to introduce this pay for performance for transactional jobs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how
Some
to
of
answer
them,
that?
yeah, even transactional job. For example, we have a BPO company. So number of call attended by the employee. Okay, number of calls positively closed by the employee. This is completely a transaction. For example, application processing. We have a team of people, bunch of people who validate those application and then they process it. That is completely a transaction. But you can actually look at the turnaround time. You can put certain metrics around it. But the transactional job which don't have any metrics, for example, the recovery, what I told you, the credit underwriting. You can't say that all the underwriting you need positively impact the business. Some of the underwriting they will decline, but the number of underwriting done by the person, should we give the incentive, or the number of positive underwriting done, you need to come up with those kind of right metrics. That's why now I said it's not the performance alone, it is the kind of effort what they put in.
Sure. So there's another question by Srinivas. Varun, if you would like to take this one up. It says, how can we implement the performance review for proprietorship organizations where there are more seasoned employees? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I would like to answer.
Exactly.
Varun, I will answer this because we are also traditionally, if you look at while we are very professional, we are also a proprietary one. A 70-year before we are the proprietary startup. So I would love to answer this. A proprietary an organization with a seasoned employee, it is much easier actually, because employee understand the nuts and bolts of the appraisal system. They understand how they contribute to the profitability and growth of the organization. So it is easier to map the goal setting process and then KPIs for the employees than the startup company. When you come up with a startup company, you get absolute mess. So you don't know where to start, who will contribute at what level. It will be very difficult for you to define. Whereas in a very seasoned organization is much easier. You are kind of moving from a paper method into a technology platform. So you will start with the technology and then you can do the curation and course correction over a period of time. Yeah, Varun, sorry.
No, no, no.
I,
I
You
was
can always
actually
add.
about to say. I was actually about to say. I think it'll fit definitely if Ganpati answers it more, right? I think made sense. Thanks for taking that up. Yeah.
But we do have a couple of more questions and you can answer those ones. So there's a question by Swati which says, what strategies can organizations use to align individual performance goals with the broader organization objectives? And I think Varun, you slightly touched upon it during the conversation.
Yeah.
So if you can answer
Correct.
Swati.
Yeah, I think like what Ganapati mentioned about pay for effort, right, and pay for performance, right. So generally there are two things. One is output and outcome, right. Outcome is actually what happens, what is the impact, right? How is it actually impacting your North Star in your organization? Output is literally what you deliver. If you had to pick 5 calls a day, did you do the 5 calls, right? Did the 5 calls translate into one demo and one closure? We don't know, right? But did you do the 5 calls really well? That's very important, right? So that's the effort I think he was also mentioning. So it's very important to have those individual goals or targets, right, and see how much of it should actually align to the broader organizational objective, right? So individual goals can be split into one or two sections, right, where you say a fraction of your individual goals are directly impacting your organizational goals, right? So that becomes very aspirational and you have to hit that, right? And setting a stretch target for it definitely helps. A strategy that I have seen work is to say, hey, if you have to kind of ensure you ship 10 features, right, I'll go ahead and say you ship 12 or 15 features for that enterprise organization, right? Then what happens is you start aiming higher, and then you might reach up on a 70% par or wherever you hit, which will still help the business, right? So that really helps. That kind of a tactic really helps to set very stretch goals, I would say. The other part of your individual performance is the effort, where you are doing it for your own upskilling, right? And you're kind of learning certain stuff, right, and giving goals around that, and ensuring your career trajectory is also being taken care of by the organization. That's very important. And these goals do not align to the business objectives. These goals align to the individual's development, which will eventually actually contribute indirectly to the business, but not immediately, right? Because I'm going to upskill on something and then I'm going to start implementing or showing that competency in the next quarter or the next year. And that's going to impact the business. So it's always future ready, right? So if you're able to split individual goals into what aligns to business, what does not align to business, then it becomes much easier, right? Then the effort versus the outcome can be actually measured, and they start seeing these two types of goals very differently. Every individual will start attacking it differently, right? They know that their career and their own growth is also important. They know the company growth is also important, right? So systems that follow OKRs actually have a classification between individual OKRs and department OKRs or organization OKRs, right? It actually tells them what is an individual, what is a department, what is an organization, and all of that. So that becomes easier. A tool can really help, but even without the tool, I think it's about how the manager sets expectation with that individual.
So if you allow me, can we take up like two more questions?
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
we have a question from Gopal. It says, how do you ensure fairness and equity in pay for performance systems, especially across diverse teams and roles? Ganpati, would you like to take this one?
Sure, certainly. In fact, good that he said equity in pay for performance. So different people add to organizational objective very differently. So some roles are really critical, some roles are not so critical. Some roles are not so important, or important but not so critical for the organization. So you create what do you call your performance, what do you call your bonus or incentive parameters accordingly. So the when somebody achieves their target, probably sorry, I see when you got the fair, you sorry, I'm sorry, extremely sorry. See how you ensure the fairness and equity for pay for performance. The fairness will be ensured no when you make a biasless performance management process. Your automation literally helps you to deliver a biasless performance management practices. So that's what my take is. So Varun, if you want to add something.
No, I think that's fair. Again, these things are important to be communicated also clearly, right? If they start getting doubts, right? If employees are not clear on, hey, what's happening across the organization, that's why a formal policy or a charter from the leadership and the HR and finance organizations rolling out to every employee on how we take care of diversity, right? How we are inclusive, how we ensure pay for performance is truly pay for performance, right? And how are we able to bring in 360-degree feedback for every employee, and it's not just a manager saying that, hey, this person's performance was great, right? So I think that peer reviews, right? How are you doing top to down reviews? How are you doing bottom to up reviews, right? And there are organizations that actually uh, uh, follow rating of managers by subordinates, right? And that's also very important, right? And all that kind of gives a very, very holistic view on that individual's contribution, and it's not just biased by one perspective, right, or one side of the story, right? So those techniques can be really helpful in ensuring fairness. It actually kind of complicates the whole process, but I think that's where tools can help. But definitely it takes some effort to go that extra mile, although the process may get a bit more complex, but it's needed to ensure that fairness, right? Yeah. I saw one more question from Parth, right?
Yeah,
Best
that's the
practices.
last one. Yeah, I'll just read it out for you. So the question says best practices or probably some tips for managers and leaders to effectively communicate and implement pay for performance initiatives within their team. So I would like both of you to answer. Probably Ganpati, you can go first.
No, let Varun go first. I will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I
Sure.
touched upon that in my previous answer also. It's very important. It's not just about the managers and leaders here. I think it's a close collaboration with HRs on how the communication happens, right? And it has to start from the day you're launching that pay for performance initiative, and giving clarity to every employee on what is pay for performance. How are you balancing out between your base pay and variable pay, right? What is your performance bonus? I think these are very, very important details that you need to get into, right? It's not just a high level process where you say, hey, I'm going to implement a strategy and that's going to drastically transform how we pay or how we evaluate performance. That's not important. We have to get into the details to every employee's salary structures, right? And talk about what part of it goes and what is the component, how is that component going to be evaluated, right? What are the KRAs, what are the metrics? And that needs to have a common charter, and that needs to get split into every department as well, right? Every department head should collaborate with the HR and the finance teams and kind of put down that framework. And once they have tested it out, and maybe pilot it out with a small team first, right? Get feedback and then roll it out to the entire organization. So it's very important to have the transparency and collaboration closely with HR finance, and then ensuring you're able to communicate out to the entire team.
Yeah. So on the pay for performance, I think the communication plays a vital role. The managers and leader need to tell the team what are the key performance metrics they are going to validate, and how they are going to use those metrics for validating the performance. This implementation, we need to be transparent, we need to be biasless. Probably you put a clear policy around it for each teams. So maybe the pay for performance for a sales team would be very different than the operation team. So probably you need to communicate how are we going to manage those performance aspirations. So that's where the communication and the transparency are two key things which you need to look at. In terms of fairness, it just occur. Maybe you can also do a skip level validation. So not just like the manager alone rating the person. Maybe at a skip level, maybe at a functional level, there can be a validation. So that actually ensures a lot of fairness. You can also add business partners to talk about the fairness, and validate the performance metrics of those individual. And you can also take a lot of what do you call the customer feedback, take a lot of data. So data crunching is the key. That actually helps the fairness. Yeah.
Just a quick point that occurred to me. Employees always look at the other side, right? When you say pay for performance, what immediately strikes me is don't pay for underperformance, right? So I think it's very important to kind of set expectations there and balance it out, right? Best practice is to tell them what happens when they are not hitting these performance benchmarks, right? That's very, very important. That gives clarity and transparency and even confidence to employees, right? It doesn't make them feel like pressurized on saying, oh, if I don't perform and I'm going to, something bad is going to happen, right? It is not that. It's about encouraging a positive culture in the organization rather than on the other side, right? So it's very important to set that expectation.
Sure. I think in the interest of time, we'll have to close this session. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and experience, Varun and Ganpati. It was indeed a very insightful and a very engaging session. Also, a special thanks to all our audiences for being there and participating in all the polls, sharing your views and your questions. We would like to know from you how was the session and if what we could have done better. So you could simply rate us and tell us, whether the session was up to your expectations or what else we could have done in this session. Thank you once again, all of you. For all the latest updates on HR Tech, you can check out the SME Corner on People Matters website powered by KK. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for this wonderful session.
Thanks, everyone.